Hi everyone, I'm Mike and this is the Sunday Art Show. In this video I'm going to show you what I think is a neat little technique which I find really useful for staying loose when you're drawing a complex building. So the idea is to create a drawing with a sense of life, but it's still regular and precise enough that, you know, it's a convincing building. So this kind of technique I think is really cool for urban sketching, or if you're just working plein air in any way. So Hever Castle is the family home of Anne Boleyn, who was the second wife of Henry VIII. So the castle is based in Kent, in the UK, southeast of England. And I'm actually not drawing the castle today. I might do a painting of that in a future video, but I'm actually drawing the Tudor style cottages. I think they were workers' cottages in the grounds of the castle. I popped the reference up on full screen just a little moment ago in the video, but you can see that bottom left. And I'm using cartridge paper. So I often use mixed media paper. If you watch my videos, mixed media paper is my go-to for paper, especially if I'm going to be painting. So watercolor, acrylic, I work on mixed media paper. But for quick sketches, I quite like using cartridge paper as well. So A2 cartridge paper, and I'm starting out with a Winsor & Newton neon marker. This is Volt Blue, and it puts down a line. It's almost like a little highlighter really, but I think a higher quality. So you can see what I've started to do is pick out some of the key architectural features. But the important point to note here is that I'm not being overly precise. So I'm not sort of sweating or stressing over trying to get every line vertical and every line horizontal. I am definitely paying attention to the proportions of the building, and I'm trying to do, a reasonable job, but I'm trying to stay fairly loose. And if some of the lines are a little bit wobbly, then fair enough. And I hope to be able to get away with that for reasons I'll sort of show you later on in the video. Now, when it comes to the windows, at the moment I'm just depicting those as areas of shadow, because in general, and in this particular reference, windows, unless there's sort of a gleaming reflection off them, they're generally little portals of shadow, little rectangles or squares or whatever they are, just little shadow shapes. So I'm just treating the building as a whole as outlines, looking at the big shapes, and then for the smaller shapes of the windows I'm putting in little blocks of shadow. Now when it comes to the chimneys and the chimney stacks, again I'm keeping things pretty simple. So if you look at the tops of the chimneys on the right, the two right-hand ones, there's some kind of architectural detail there. I haven't worried about elaborating that too much. I've just kind of put in a couple of horizontal lines to indicate that that's what's going on. So I'm just gradually piecing together what I can see of this relatively complex building. Now these markers come with, as they often do these things, they often come with a fine line nib, and then they come, in this case, with, it's kind of I would say it's a big conical nib. Okay, so I'm using the larger nib and I'm using the pen side on for the most part, so that I'm actually getting a pretty wide pen mark. And again, that's a good way to stay loose. If instead of holding the pen as you would to write, if you hold it between all four fingertips and thumb, which I'm not doing at the moment, but on video, but I was at different points in the drawing, it's a nice way to stay loose. Now, when it comes to this kind of shrubbery and this bush in the foreground, I'm just letting my pen really wander at random here to create a roughly tree-like outline, and then a few little details here and there. And then there are little trees in the foreground there as well, but I'm kind of depicting that as a little bit of a fence, a few fence posts going off into the distance. And then there's a kind of well-worn path in the foreground, which we'll get to in a moment, but I'm just adding in a few more trees and a few more windows to obscure the hidden areas of the building. And then there's a little bit of a wall that I'm putting in there. And then when it comes to this well-trodden path, if you're trying to go from one area of the painting to somewhere a long way away, just move your pen really quickly, because what I generally find is if I'm painting a sweeping riverbank or a long sweeping path freehand, I'm just putting in a little reflection there because it's a little bit of a bank of the stream or something there. But if you do it quick, even if the line isn't all that accurate, if it's not perfect, it will in general be more effective than if you sort of fiddle with it and kind of go slow and careful. I think it makes for a more energetic drawing. A few trees in the background peeking out above the roofline there. And we've got the beginnings of our sketch, everything in its place, and our composition is established. So now I've switched to another one of these Winsor & Newton neon markers. This one is actually electric pink. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to go round the drawing, adding in a few little details in this colour, and also areas that I think, you know, could do with being a bit darker or just need colouring in to help emphasise the 3D nature of the structure. So the main face of the building that's visible, the bit I'm working on now, there's quite a lot of elaborate patterning on the face of that building. So I'm just beginning to piece that together in a fairly simplified way. So if you're faced with an intricate pattern on an architectural structure, generally speaking, there will be some regularity to it. So the way I tend to break it down is, let's say you've got a load of leaves in a pattern. I will simply count how many leaves there are from left to right, and if there's 5, then I'll typically divide up that section into 5 little rectangles, and then I'll place a leaf into each rectangle, if that's the appropriate thing to do. And in that way, what I find is even working freehand, although it's not a perfect representation of the pattern, it's good enough. It's good enough to give you the effect. Now with these chimney stacks, I'm colouring in the fronts of the front edges or the front faces in the pink, and just adding a few little touches of colour under the eave of that roof there, a little bit more on a chimney stack, and that one and that one. And then keeping in mind I want to keep a reasonably even distribution of each colour throughout the drawing, I add a little bit more on the left, as you can see there. And then some in the reflection of that end wall. And then a little bit along the edge of that path. And I'm deliberately not following the blue line that I put down because it's kind of a long grass path as opposed to a regular path. And again, that gives the line work a bit more energy, this kind of slightly fractured nature where the two lines don't overlap completely. This main tree in the foreground I'm filling in this neon pink, electric pink, just to bring that forward in front of the building. But I'm keeping my marks pretty random here, so you know I'm not colouring it in fully. I want to get some of that foliage texture incorporated. And then here is what I feel is the key to this technique. So we've stayed fairly loose, and of course you could use any 2 colours you like. You may have spotted right at the beginning of the video I had just a grey marker pen mark down there. But I decided to go with something a bit more dramatic, so the blue and the pink. You know, obviously you could do red and green or whatever you like. But now I'm coming in with my uni-pin marker, and this has got a very fine nib. By the uni-pin marker standards, it's actually pretty chunky. It's a 0.8 mil, but compared to what I was doing before, it really is, you know, really quite the fine liner. So what I can do now is go in with this black ink, nice narrow clean lines, and I can add little intricate details where I want. I can strengthen shadows where I want. I can correct lines where I want. I can add bits of texture. And the key for me here is to, you know, be selective about what you're doing. So I don't want to hide completely all the work I've done, but I want to create a sense of focus in the drawing. So everything's been really quite loose and lively, which was the intention, even though a lot of what we're depicting are pretty much straight lines, boxes and triangles and things like that. But now I can come in and add a few windows on the side of the building, as I just did there. I'm enhancing the lines of the roof, and I did that a little bit earlier as well on that kind of main inverted V. And then I can add perhaps And then I can add, a few roof tiles, or at least suggest them with a few horizontal lines and a few zigzags on that roof, which had previously had no colouring at all. And then trying to unify that area in general, just continuing the dark lines onto the other rooftop that's visible, the end roof, and then up into the chimney stack, a little bit of brickwork and a little bit more definition on the actual chimney pots on top. So in the same way, if I was working with my interactive acrylics and doing a painting, I might use quite a large brush for most of the painting, block in everything, keep with soft edges and just work on tonal shapes, nice big shapes where I can get away with it. And then at the end, if I was painting a cow in a landscape or something, I might do a lot more detailed work on the head and the face of the cow, because I would use a small brush there. And that's going to draw the viewer's focus to the face of that animal. Here, though, I want the focus to be drawn towards the building the part of the building I'm working on at this very moment. So I'm adding in a few more details of this patterning on the facade of the building. And adding that detail is hopefully going to bring the viewer's eye directly into that part of the picture. And you don't have to be too rigorous about it. That doesn't mean I can't use the pen anywhere else. But in terms of the most detail, that's where it goes. Now, I mentioned earlier that I really didn't do much in the way of description for the tops of these chimney stacks, but now I'm coming in with my fine line. I can go over the pink and the blue and add a little bit more detail here and there, put in a little bit of brickwork on that front face, enhance the roof line, a little bit more texture. And then I can even add a few architectural details where I haven't actually put any pink or blue down. So the bottom edge of that roof on the far right there, I just added. And, so you get this sort of multi-layered effect. You've got the pure blue, you've got the pure pink, you've got areas with both, then you've got areas with those two plus the fine line like I'm doing now. I'm adding a little bit of extra wiggliness to the edge of the tree here. But then you can also have little areas like on the far right where you've just got that pure black fine line marker. So even with just 3 pens, you can create a great variety of mark making and textures and also color as well. So there's lots of different, things you can do by combining the media in different ways. So if you're out and about doing your urban sketching, you only need to carry 3 pens and your pad of paper, but you can create something quite vibrant and stylized and, just a little bit different to perhaps what you might normally consider. So just a few little squiggles of grass going in with this marker pen. There's a bit of a doorway in that wall there, which I'd barely indicated before, the wall, but I thought adding the doorway just added a little something to it. You can sort of imagine yourself wandering through there to get to the house. So here's a closer look at the main part of the drawing, and you can see that I've left some bits just purely marker pen blue, marker pen electric pink, and then you get this nice purple or dark, yeah, it's kind of a purple, where the two overlap. Other areas are barely described, and then, as mentioned a moment ago, on this chimney stack you can see the black line on top, the fine line. It really adds a lot of definition, and I feel it makes the fluorescent colours really pop as well. So it's a lovely little technique. I really enjoy sketching in this way, and my plan is in the near future I hope to go outside and do a bit of urban sketching or plein air drawing, whatever you want to call it, and I'll experiment with this technique but with some different subjects. And so yeah, I'll post that up on the channel fairly soon. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next Sunday for the next episode of the Sunday Art Show.